Well, hello and Happy New Year. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Yarn Ambassador podcast. It's been about 6 months since my last confession. I am really sorry. I don't know where 6 months went. I was on top of everything and then suddenly I blinked and now it's 2019 and I've done so much knitting. I've not told anybody about it, so I'm going to race through some of the knitting I've been doing over the past 6 months. If you're new to this podcast, very much welcome. It's quite sporadic, if that wasn't already obvious. But I aim to showcase the work of independent yarn dyers in the UK. Sometimes I get to go and see them and speak to them, and sometimes life gets in the way. Indie dyers are very busy and don't always have the time to catch up. I'm not always going to yarn shows, and so sometimes I don't get to speak to them in person, but I still want to let you guys know what wonderful yarns they have and what I've been making out of them. So I'll move on to that part of the podcast in just a moment. For those of you who are returning viewers, welcome back. For those of you who have been waiting since, was it August the last time? We did a giveaway in August from Snuggly Stars Yarn, and we had a little badge, a little cat badge, and some little rabbit buttons, and I did a random number generator, and Brit Girl Knits, who I think is Chris Hindle, has won that. So Chris, I will drop you a line either via Instagram or Ravelry to get your address to bung them in the post. I'm so sorry it took so long, but hey, a New Year treat that no one was expecting. I am currently very proudly wearing my Snuggly Stars Cat in a Sweater badge, which I love and has been getting a lot of love over the Christmas period as well. So since we last met, since I last recorded, I have been very busy knitting. I've mostly been on a massive jumper kick. So I banged out a Carbeth because that seemed to satisfy that need quite quickly. I'll insert a photo here. This was made out of Triskelion yarns in the Elmet worsted colourway, yarn type, which they had on sale, and I got very excited. Might have had a glass or two of wine again, and bought a lot of that. I didn't read the description enough, and it's a beautiful colour. I don't know if you can see it. It's this kind of mild denim-y blue with kind of flecks of black in it. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's a single ply, which I wasn't quite expecting. But the great thing about the Carbeth is that you hold 2 strands of worsted weight or Aran weight yarn double, so I thought that was the perfect use for it, because of sometimes with single ply yarns, they're not the best for garments because they pill and they don't wear as well potentially as those that have got several strands plied together. It has pilled a bit. It's so cozy warm. It's absolutely beautiful. But I just need to get a gleaner out on it and that'll be job done. So really enjoying wearing that, and it's a brilliant pattern by the wonderful Kate Davies. If you don't already know, she's a brilliant designer and kind of one of my go-to designers when I'm looking for something beautiful and a bit different to knit. She's got a cardigan version of the same pattern and one called Swan Dance, which I think has got some kind of lace and cabling on it, perhaps. Not sure about that. So that was something that I did quite quickly, and there's a hashtag bang out a Carbeth because it is something that you can pretty much do over the course of the week. It's knits up as a chunky when you're holding 2 worsted weights together. So yeah, very fast results if you're looking for a quick knit to get you into January. The other one I've knitted, I've been jumping on all sorts of bandwagons. I mean, I've not really discovered anything new, is a Tenya Tegna. It's written Tegna, but and it's by Caitlin Hunter, another who was, I think, Boyland Knit, another designer who I really like. She's got some brilliant patterns out, and this is I'll see if I can show you, a kind of slightly cropped, slightly flared tee. It's got short sleeves. Well, I mean, you can make the sleeves whatever length you like. That's the whole beauty of knitting. And I really love it. It's a really flattering shape, especially if you are carrying a bit of a Christmas belly, as some of us are. But it's got a beautiful bit of lace work at the bottom, as you can see. Which is very easy. I'm not really a lace knitter, but it was very easy to get into, and then it's just stockinette with the drop sleeve. So I've been finding this so useful for layering. I knit this out of hobby wool yarn. I don't know if you remember, I mentioned I went to Latvia and found the hobby wool shop, and they do those wonderful knit like a Latvian mitten kits, but they were also just selling the yarn in skeins, and it was only like €3.50 for a 100 gram skein. So I picked up a whole load of this kind of charcoaly colour, and that it's more kind of rustic. It's not a superwash yarn, so it's a bit different to other 10 years I've seen, and I really want to repeat this pattern in a kind of smoother superwash yarn. I've got a couple of things I've got in mind, but I think you only really need 2.5 or 3 skeins, so it's quite an economical knit as well. And if you've got that in your stash, it's quite easy to make up a beautiful garment. So that's something I have been wearing a lot. I would say perhaps this is my favouriteest hand knit at the moment. Then I've been trying to kind of clear out some stash and found some natural Aran weight yarn from the Isle of Mull by a lovely lady called Ardalanish Knits. I'll put that in. But I had a massive cone of this natural Aran from Ardalanish, and I decided to see what I could do to use that up and make it into a garment. And again, I've been on a kind of quite a cropped sweater kick at the moment. I quite like the shape of it. I've got high-waisted jeans and a lot of high-waisted skirts and dresses and things, so it seems to work well at that style, although not so much when it's a tight fit. Anyway, the other thing I have knitted up, this is the Miette cardigan. This is by Andy Satterlund. It's a kind of cropped, almost kind of vintagey style. You can see it kind of goes in towards the bottom, and it sits quite high up on, it just kind of comes in the middle of your waist. But it looks really nice over dresses or with flared skirts. It's kind of quite a vintage style look, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I was wearing it over Christmas quite a bit with a bright red skirt and felt very festive. And this has got a kind of small lace detail going around the edges of it. I used some buttons again, which were from up in Scotland. These are actually made of horn, I think. I'm not sure whose horn. Maybe cow horn? Should have really remembered that, but I don't. So that was really nice. Now that is the Miette cardigan. Now I understand that the Miette cardigan has been retired and been replaced by a very, very similar one called Crumb. So if you're looking for something similar, then check out Andy Satterlund's Crumb pattern. Sorry. It's taken a while to get into this. So in between all this knitting, I also went to the Knit Tea Retreat, which is run by Owl About Yarn and Pins and Needles, also known as Jenny and Zoe. That was in October, just in Cardiff, and that was so much fun. It's the first knitting retreat I've been on, and I got to be roomies with Debbie from Down Sheepy Lane, which was great fun. And I went to loads of workshops. I went to a brioche workshop, I went to a double knitting workshop, and a lace workshop as well. So I was learning all the knowledge. Have I practiced any of those techniques since coming away from that? Absolutely not. But it was a brilliant, brilliant weekend. Met some wonderful people and made some great new friends. I'm really excited because I get to go to, I have signed up for the one in June, which is in Stratford, where there'll be less classes and more chitter chat, which I'm quite looking forward to, because I had signed up for 3 workshops, which was a bit balmy. I was just so excited that I kind of filled my time. I think if I were to do it again, I'd probably only pick maybe 1 or 2 workshops and just spend the time getting to chat with people who I only ever interact with on Instagram or through YouTube. So but it was brilliant, brilliantly organised. Really hats off to Zoe and Jenny for that, even though this is a really long time ago. See, I told you there was a lot of stuff to catch up on. I did quite a bit of knitting for Christmas. There were socks. I particularly was focused on the West Yorkshire Spinners bird range. So my dad got a pair of pheasant socks and my mum got a pair of wood pigeon socks. Everybody else didn't get much knitting aside from my nieces and nephews, who got hats and scarves, fox hats and fox scarves, and a wolf hat and a kind of Arctic fox scarf. I'll see if I can insert some pictures here. They were quite good fun. They were knitted out of, is it Cedar Alpine, which is a faux fur. Never knitting with faux fur again. What a bloody nightmare that was. It was impossible to see what was going on. I probably made tons of mistakes, but it doesn't really matter because you can't see, but it was quite a frustrating knit. The end result was super soft. The yarn is lovely, lovely to touch. I know Jenny Pins and Needles has used it for a cowl, and I've got some left and I'm considering what I can do with it, but I might just have to recover from the trauma of knitting 4 items out of it, because that tested my patience quite a bit. But the kids seemed to like them, and even if they only used them for dress-ups, it was a fun thing to do. They expect knits from the Mad Auntie, so that's what they shall get. So for 2019, I know a lot of people are doing the Make 9 thing. I'm not going to do that because there are just so many things I want to do. I've got some quite big projects that I've got in mind that I want to work on, of which more will be coming the next time I will record, which will be sooner than 6 months, I promise. So I've got this big jumper project going on. What I have done is I've organised my stash by potential project. So I have separated out single skeins of sock yarn so that I know they're going into socks. The single skeins of single ply yarn, they've gone into another bag which will be for shawls. I've grouped together all the jumper quantity yarns together so that I know how many jumper projects I can do. I've got a couple of DK quantities of DK jumper weight quantities. I've got quite a few fingering weight jumper quantities, so it's just to make sure that when a project does come to mind, I can go straight to that rather than going on and buying it, because again, this year I am trying to work through that stash. Now, one of the things I did, ironically, you've got to speculate to accumulate? No, other way. Anyway, basically I'm trying to say that I had to spend some money in order to save some money and use up the stash I'd got. Now, I had been watching Amy of the Stranded podcast, and I had been watching Amy's podcast with a couple of glasses of wine, and she was talking about her circular sock machine, and I was like, oh my god, this is just exactly what I need to crack through my stash of sock yarn, those single skeins, because I am a slow sock knitter. I enjoy it, and I quite like it as a grab and run project, but I'm slow. It's going to take me years to get through the stash I've got if I just do it by hand. So, having had a couple of glasses of wine, I thought, I'll just check and see what's on eBay. Now, brand new circular sock machines are super pricey and out of my price range. So I thought, well, I will have a look on eBay and see if anybody's getting rid of any. Now, turns out that even second-hand and particularly vintage circular sock machines are also really pricey on eBay. And so I was just about to kind of let it go and go, all right, well, hand sock knitting it is, when I saw one that was on for the bonkers price of £35, which is probably about a tenth of the price of what some of the circular sock machines were going for. So I thought, well, sod it, I'll put a bid on, and ended up kind of bidding myself quite high on a circular sock machine. It was being sold by a lady who didn't know anything about it. She was obviously clearing up some of her aunt's things. They'd found it in the garage, realised that some people might be interested in it, but she had no idea if it worked. She didn't know if all of the pieces were there. So it was a bit of an unknown. And when I stopped bidding and I went to sleep, I woke up in the morning and thought, probably best that I didn't win that one. It was all for the best. And then the person who was ahead of me in the bidding retracted their bid. I didn't even know you could do that. And so suddenly I was the winner. And I am now the owner of an antique circular sock machine. So it came in its original box, I think, very rusty, very dusty. I spent many a night in November and December cleaning rust off the tiny little needles. I realised I had no idea what... this is a sage lesson about eBay shopping for everybody. So I had no idea what model it was, didn't even know what pieces it was supposed to have or not have. So there started a massive investigation online. I have joined all sorts of circular sock machine groups, and fortunately they were able to help me identify what it is. Now it's an antique, which is amazing. I think we've decided it's a cooperative machine, and the history behind these vintage circular sock machines is balmy. They were part of the war effort and the kind of knit socks for our soldiers, and this one dates back to the early 1900s. And so people would rent these circular sock machines and then kind of acquire them by making socks and sending the socks back to the original company to sell on. So I am not quite there. So after I had scrubbed rust off 70 plus tiny little needles, turns out that there were quite a few missing. Quite a few of the existing ones I had were bent or kind of distorted and weren't any use. So I then had to go and try and find some replacement needles. Found a lovely lady in the States who supplies kind of replacement parts and bits and bobs. So I've ordered what I need, and now my next project is to kind of do the final assembly and teach myself how to make sock tubes. So that's a big project for 2019. And we'll see. I still have no idea if it works or not. I think I've got all the pieces for it, but we shall see. So there'll be more on that coming anon. What else to tell you? So I think that's kind of caught you up to where I'm at the moment. The dyer who I wanted to talk about today is, I'm sure you all know her work, and if you're based in the UK, then I'm sure you can't have missed her at yarn shows around the UK. I met her at Yarningham and Wool at Junction 34. No, it's not Junction 12. The Wool at the Junction, the one that's just off the M6. So I met her there, and her lovely family who were there supporting her as well. And I just totally fell in love with her yarns, and it is Dusty Dimples. I'm sure many of you have met her and know and love what she does. She's Dusty Dimples yarn on Instagram, I think, as well. I'll put links so you can find her. She sells through Etsy. Now, I've been in contact with her quite a bit. She is a working mum. She is very busy, and I think they're just doing up their house. So we haven't been able to meet in person to kind of chat through it, but I still wanted to be able to show you what I've created because I love her yarns. I was particularly attracted because she has very soft, subtle colourways. She has kind of more brighter ones as well, but her whole kind of palette is quite neutral, quite subtle, and very gentle, and that kind of really struck me. So the other thing you need to know about Dusty Dimples yarn is that it smells amazing. Now, I think she uses a kind of a secret mix of essential oils when she's rinsing her yarns, or I don't know, but it is such a joy to knit with because you just have this beautiful aroma coming out. So one of the things that I was inspired to knit when I had met Dusty Dimples, and she had done this amazing Find Your Facial, which is part of her display on her stand, and they were just gorgeous colours. Now I've made a Find Your Fave. They're a labour of love, so I decided to do a slightly smaller version and opted for something which is called the 150 Fade by Fibre Me This, and this uses 50 grams of each colourway. And this is what the yarn is, the shawl is. So this is the shawl. So it's an offset triangle, and these are just the most beautiful, subtle colourways, and there are 3 in here. So I'm going to put this on. I'm going to put it on because I've blocked it. I've not blocked it terribly well, but this is such an immensely wearable thing because of the neutral shades. It's something you can pretty much wear with everything. Now, this first colour, this is the Lacuna colourway. Let me grab my bits and bobs. So this is the Lacuna. It's a barely there. It's not really, it's kind of not showing up a brilliant representation. It's a kind of barely there blush. It's almost like, do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of pink champagne. It's a bit paler than that. It's just an ever so subtle blush of pink through this kind of beigey, oatmeal-y neutral. And that's the Lacuna colourway. Here it is. And this one is 80% merino, 20% nylon. And for 100 grams, you get 300 metres. So I've got, I only used 50 grams. So I've got quite a bit left of that, which I think I will use for heels and toes on socks and things, because it's a really versatile neutral. Sorry, really yappy dog going past. Can you hear that? Then we have the next one. This is called Bark. Now, on screen you can't really see much of a difference, but again, this is just a slight, I'll put them together so you can see. This is a slightly darker version, and again, there's a bit of a stronger blush, and every so often, there's a little fleck of green or pink. I don't know if you can see. I'll try and take some photos. So they work really well together, and this is 75% merino and 25% nylon, and for this you're getting 425 meters for the bark. Just on a side note, look how cool her logo is. It's absolutely amazing. Dusty Dimples. And then the final one of this is called Calopsia. No, I'm going to get the hang of this one day. There we go. And this is kind of like the next version down. So this is lovely variegated. It's got quite strong golden browns in it, kind of almost mustardy, some mauve, some pink. So it's a beautiful kind of gradient, and you can see how they really work together and why I wanted them to be part of my fade. And the Find Your Fade that is on the stand, the Dusty Dimples stand, uses quite a few of those as well. So as you can see, they're really delicate but just really attractive yarns. I love them. I think my favourite out of all of those is the Bark. It's very, very subtle blushed pink with every so often just a slight fleck of pink. Beautiful. So that was the 150 fade. I love it. I now get to start wearing it, because when I make things for the podcast, I like to kind of save them for best, for when I'm showing them to you. So I often have a pile of things being like, oh, I can't wear that until I've podcasted. But now I have, so now I can start wearing this, or think of a worthy recipient for a gift. So that was one of the first things I made. And then the next thing I made was a pair of socks. Now this, I don't normally make bright coloured socks, but these were such a beautiful yellow, a really bright, cheerful yellow, and this is her Honeycomb sock, and this is 75% merino, 25% nylon again, and the yellow just really spoke to me. Really warm and gentle flecks, nothing over the top. Oh, look, actually they work really nicely together as well. Might do something with them. But the Honeycomb name gave me an idea, and I had just recently bought the Woolen Honey pattern by Andrea Mowry, and so pinched some elements of that to make these honeycomb socks, which is, it's a very simple pattern. How you do it, I won't tell you what the secret is, but it's not too tricky, and I think I quite like how it's been incorporated, and actually when it's on your feet it looks really good as well, because it's all stretched out. So yay, I get to start wearing these again. But you can see that her colour palette is really subtle, it's really gentle, and I really love that. And then also, I think I did mention last time that I've been on a bit of a decay kick as well. I've been really enjoying kind of some faster projects and working through things. And this is a pair of mittens. This is the Hermione's Everyday Mitten pattern. which is by, who's it by? Erica Lueder. And it's just a very, I think you can get Hermione's everyday socks, you can get Hermione's everyday hats, similar pattern. But these are the mitts, these are fingerless mitts. And so I know I just said that I don't wear things until I've podcasted, but I didn't have any mitts, so I have been wearing these. And look, you'll see that I'm terrible at end weaving in. This one's come loose, so I need to fix that. But this is a Dusty Dimples DK, and it's in the Shimla colourway. And this is 75% merino, 25% nylon, and you get 225 metres. And this is a beautiful, variegated charcoal on cream, and then there are these bright red kind of flecks of red every so often. It's just, I really love it, and it goes with so many things. Obviously, for mitts, this goes with all the coats I have, and it works really well on this pattern as well. This pattern is a really good showcase for variegated yarns. It gives a little bit of texture, but allows the yarn to kind of shine underneath it. So I have been wearing these absolutely non-stop. The pattern itself, I don't know if I probably made an error. To be fair, it was a very simple pattern. But the thumb bit is really huge. So I've got quite gapy thumbs. I don't think I've got particularly thin thumbs. I think I've got quite huge thumbs. But you can see the thumb hole does seem to be disproportionately huge. Anyway, they're really handy mitts. And what I like about them is that they go down so low. So it's been a real fun journey knitting with the Dusty Dimples yarn. She's definitely somebody who I would have in my kind of Etsy favourites shop, who I can go and see what they're doing, and I would always go and visit her at the yarn shows because her yarns are so usable and the colourways are just so complementary and neutral. You can use them with everything. I was listening to the Shiny Bees podcast and her suspected trends for 2019, yarn trends for 2019, and she is predicting the end of bonkers coloured speckled yarns that are just kind of way out there, which are so much fun, but not always difficult to wear, and sometimes that's not everybody's personality. Not everybody wants to wear bright neon sparkles and speckles and things. But so if you don't, then the place to go is Dusty Dimples. Do check her out. She's delightful and really lovely to chat to as well at the yarn shows. I'm not quite sure where she'll next be, but if you follow her on Instagram, you can get all the information on that. These ones don't smell as good because they've been on my hands. See, that smells... I wish I knew what it was. It's just phenomenal. I could just sit here all day sniffing yarn. But then the people who are walking by on the street would give me even funnier looks than I'm already getting. So, I think I'll bring it to a close here. It's lovely to be back. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. If you did enjoy the episode, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, because then when I do next record, it'll give you a little notification so you can catch that then as well. Thank you very much. Thank you to Dusty Dimples for just being a beautiful yarn dyer. Really recommend you go and check her out and get your hands on some beautiful neutral goodies. All right, thank you very much. Have a happy 2019, and I hope to catch you soon-ish. Bye.